Welcome to the White Code. I'm Mehul Shafoo, and today's episode is all about cross-chain. I want to learn this stuff because I realized I don't know a lot about about how cross-chain protocols work. And to do that, I have Sand on. Sand, thanks for taking the time, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm always up to chat anything cross-chain.
Awesome, man. Yeah, Sand is building a cross-chain credit card actually, which is called Smoke on Chain, which is interesting. So yeah, why don't you briefly introduce yourself, introduce what you're building, and then let's talk about cross-chain.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, I'm Sand. I'm the founder of Smoke. I've been in the space for almost like 3.5, 4 years now. Mostly in the cross-chain space, just been researching, learning about cross-chain. So I started this account as Sand almost 1 year ago, and I just started writing about cross-chain. Got a bit of feedback from the community. I met a lot of interesting people in the last 1 year as well. And in the last, one of my achievements that I've done is like I've consulted Optimism Foundation for the Superchain report. I worked with the Delphi guys on this. I think in March to May. Then I got this idea for a way to just improve the cross-chain experience and also like just reduce the cross-chain costs. Like right now bridging is still quite expensive, so that's why like I thought of an idea, pretty simple. What if we just like lend users money on a new chain and let them pay back at a later point of time? And we all know on-chain lending is pretty cheap, especially if it's for a shorter period of time, like a day or a week or a month. It's pretty cheap compared to bridging every time. So that was my core thesis behind Smoke. So that's when I just started exploring this idea, did some market research on cross-chain lending protocols, and if I need to build my own cross-chain lending protocol. So then I tested this out. Like I just built an MVP myself, showed it to a few friends. It's pretty nice. Got some good feedback there as well. So I've been building Smoke for almost like 6 months now, I think. And it's live on testnets, mainnet. It's live on mainnet as well internally. So yeah, something that's super exciting that I'm working on. Yeah.
Nice, man. Sounds exciting. So yeah, let's jump directly into it. Maybe walk me through. Let's start simple. What's like the state of the art of I don't know, how does a cross work or the bridging protocols for like simply moving one asset, I don't know, from Ethereum to Optimism or something?
Okay. So of course, there has been a lot of I would say research or articles about cross-chain in the last 4 years, I think now. But like there are like mainly this is how they talk about, right? Like there are actually two kinds of bridges. One is like a mint and burn bridge, and second is like a liquidity bridge, right? So like there are two reasons for you to think cross-chain. One, if you want to take your token cross-chain. Second, you just want to move. You want to take your token cross-chain as a project yourself. For instance, like you're Sushi, and you want to get your Sushi token to as many chains as possible. So you want to be bridging your token and create a representation of that token on a new chain. That's one use case. Second is like moving your liquidity to different chains. For instance, you have ETH on mainnet, and you want to get that ETH onto Optimism or Arbitrum to buy a token, for instance, right? So like these are the two major reasons why people in the cross-chain space solve these problems. Like we solve, these are the main two problems that we solve essentially. So let's take the first option, or first problem first, which is taking your token to a different chain as a project. So your Sushi, you have your token on mainnet, and you want to bridge it to Optimism, right? So how do you do it? So you would be locking those tokens on Ethereum, and you're creating a representation of that on Optimism. So for this, you would be using something like the Optimism native bridge, and that's where the tokens will be locked, right? That's actually the best way for you as a project to bridge to Optimism, because like all of these other bridges have third-party validators, which you don't want to trust. Optimism bridge is as secure as Ethereum itself, right? That's one main. That's the main problem, and also like there are to solve that same problem. There have been a lot of projects in the last several years. The major one that you all have heard of is Layer Zero. They have created this standard called OFTs. It's called Omnichain Fungible Tokens. So this OFTs or this OFT protocol also solves the exact same problem of letting projects take their tokens across different chains. So how this works is that like you just wrap your token into an OFT, and you can move those tokens across any chain that Layer Zero supports, right? So in this case, how like you would be locking your token on, for instance, like Ethereum mainnet, and you can bridge it to Optimism, but you can then bridge from Optimism to Arbitrum, right? And Arbitrum to Polygon, any of the chains that you choose to support or choose to have your token on. Unlike the first example where I told you about like the Optimism native bridge or using Optimism native bridge to bridge your token, like if you did that, and let's say you wanted to bridge to Arbitrum as well, as a user, you would have to go back to ETH and then bridge to Arbitrum, which is of course not the ideal experience. That's the problem that Layer Zero aims to solve, which is bridging from any chain to any chain with just one click, right? With just one hop. So, like, yeah, I know you asked about across and bridging your assets from Ethereum to Optimism, but this is actually like the core part of, I would say, like cross-chain, which is like taking your token to different chains first, and then you can let your users bridge to different chains, right? So let's talk about like the second part of the cross-chain, or second main problem that we solve in this space, which is the liquidity bridging. Liquidity bridging involves like taking your ETH or USDC or USDT to different chains and just bridging it as soon as possible. Like, of course, you can bridge your ETH from Ethereum to Optimism or back using the native bridge, but bridging it back takes like 7 days, right? So that's why you need a third-party bridge like across to pretty much like give you ETH on mainnet as soon as possible, or from Optimism to Arbitrum, Optimism to any chain out there. Like you need third-party bridges like across, Stargate, and dBridge to help you take these tokens to different chains. But yeah, like I'll just stop here for now. But let me know if you want me to dig into any of these. Let me know which direction that you want to dig into, so that we can expand there.
Yeah, I would love to dig deeper into bridging a new token. So for example, DIA, the stable coin, for example, we had that on Ethereum, and there is no notion of dyad on.
Hey, so your voice is a little low still.
Oh, is it better now?
Yes, yeah. Now it's.
Yeah, I was saying I would love to dig deeper into how to bridge, new assets. So for example, dyad, the stable coin, we had that on Ethereum. And how would you do that? How would you bridge that to Optimism, for example, in detail, right? Okay, you call into the Optimism bridge contract on L1, you lock your liquidity there. But how do you create, do you need to deploy a new ERC20 token on Optimism, or how would you do that exactly?
Sure, of course. So this is, yeah. I'll actually give you two different ways of doing it. One is you take your DIA token, just go to Optimism native bridge, and just bridge this new ERC20 into Optimism, right? So if you just go to the Optimism gateway and then bridge DIA to Optimism, like the bridge creates a new ERC20 by itself. So you don't need to deploy a new contract or anything. It just creates a new representation itself, and it's as simple as that. It just works like that. So you now have, if you just did that, you now have dyad on Optimism right now. And to bridge it back, you use the same Optimism native bridge, but it takes 7 days to bridge it back to Ethereum. But it's super simple if you just did this. And also there are very, very little trust assumptions. You're only trusting the Optimism native bridge, which we all consider to be super secure. Like that's like the best way to do it. If you ask me for advice, like, to how would you bridge, how would I bridge my token to a new chain like Optimism, I would say this. But if you go around and ask different bridge teams like Layer 0, Hyperlane, Wormhole, all of these teams, they will say that, it's better to do it with their token standard. Like, for instance, OFDs, or Hyperlane has warp assets, and I think Wormhole has entities. Like, that's another way of bridging your DIAD token to Optimism. But I'll stop here and then, do you want me to get deeper into these tokens or
Yeah, okay, so the bridge realizes that there is no notion of a DIAD token on Optimism and automatically creates that for you, or how does it work? And actually,
Exactly.
let me share my screen here, because I'm on the, if you can see that, there is
Yes.
Super Bridge and there is bridge.gg. Let's, use the Super Bridge, and I actually think this opens up a new tab. So I need to show my whole window. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm on here, right? And I want to bridge DIAD. Obviously, when I go here and take the DIAD address and paste it in here, this looks like a token on Ethereum. You need to enter the contract address for a token on OP mainnet. So it needs like something on OP mainnet that doesn't exist yet.
No, wait, can you try again? Wait, can you try Arbitrum? Just do it on Arbitrum Bridge. I think since they host their own front end for that, it would be better, I guess.
Bridge. I need to connect my wallet. Okay, let's bridge. Let's try to add DIAD to this. There we go.
Yeah.
Make sure you have ETH. Okay, so this would work.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, in this case, it will create a token for you. So that's exactly what he said. It will check if this particular token on mainnet, if it has been bridged to Arbitrum before or not. So you only need to bridge once. So if you just bridge your DIAD to Arbitrum once, the next time a different user bridges the same token, it will just create the same token as well. But Optimism should also work the same way. I'm not sure. Maybe you need to do something else there. But ideally, maybe it's not implemented on the Super Bridge front end, but it should work as well similarly.
So does this in the background on Arbitrum create a new ERC20 token?
Yes.
Okay, so the first time it will cost a lot of gas because I'm creating the ERC20 token as well, and then after that, it's just a mint.
No, so this is just ETH mainnet cost. To just deploy an ERC20 on Arbitrum is super cheap.
Yeah. No, I mean you will pay the gas for it. It's very cheap, but you're paying the gas for that the first time, and after that you have the existing ERC20 token.
Yes.
But it needs to be a special ERC20 token, right? So you need to give the mint function and the burn function to the bridge, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All of that is baked in, if I'm not wrong. You can just try it out, and the Arbitrum bridge would have the minting rights for the token on Arbitrum.
Do you think we could find that?
I think so, yeah. Arbitrum token bridge, yeah. I've not looked into the code. Like, I've seen it. I think I've bridged on testnets. But yeah, that's how it should work pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, right. It should deploy a special ERC20 token.
I mean, I would say it's a normal ERC20 token, but just the minting rights would be given to minting and burning rights would be given to the bridge contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Bridge mint, bridge burn.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice. Okay, this is the first way. What's the second way?
Yeah, so the second way of taking your token to different chains is by using third-party bridges. So the problem with this approach is that once you bridge to, let's say, for instance, in this case, Arbitrum, and let's say Dayad as a stable coin, right? So you would also want to be able to move that token to different chains like Optimism, Base, etc., right? But you as a user, if you bridge this to, if you get Dayad on Arbitrum and you want to bridge that to Optimism, like the only way you would have to do it, you can do it, is by bridging back to Ethereum and then to Optimism, right? So like that's not ideal, right? But like, of course, you can set up a liquidity bridge. A liquidity bridge is pretty much like a DEX across chains, where let's say, I give my Dayad token on Arbitrum and you give me the same token on Optimism. So in this case, like if we use the native bridges, we would just have liquidity pools on both chains, like Dayad pool on Arbitrum and Optimism. And as you just like send this token onto the Arbitrum contract, the other contract on Optimism would just unlock Dayad to you. So there's no minting and burning in the liquidity bridge side, but this is how it would work. But of course, like the liquidity bridge that is powering this system would need to rebalance their system if there's a lot of demand by using the native bridge. So that's actually like you'd say you can call it a downside of bridging your token to different L2s by using the native bridges. So are you with me so far?
Okay.
Then I'll talk about the other solutions to solve this.
So the liquidity bridge is between Optimism and Arbitrum, but if you have a lot of demand, you have to go through the native bridge, so you have to go through the L1, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so how does cross-chain communication between Arbitrum and Optimism work exactly? Is there like a sequencer entity in the middle or something that how does that work?
So in case of this liquidity bridge where you have pools on both chains, and of course, once you lock your tokens on Arbitrum, there needs to be a message that needs to be sent from Arbitrum to Optimism to say that unlock this number of tokens on Optimism, right? But this message, of course, like we can't go take this through mainnet. Of course, it's going to take 7 days, right? So like right now, most bridges, how they work is that they use something like Layer 0 or Hyperlane or Wormhole, any of these different AMBs. We call them arbitrary messaging bridges. They just let you send messages from any chain to any chain. So we use these AMBs to send these messages from Arbitrum to Optimism. But the validator behind this AMB would just be, right now, Layer 0 Labs runs, like Layer 0 is powered by something called DVNs. These are called different validator setups on inside Layer 0. And you as a liquidity bridge, you can choose the kind of DVNs that you want to use. So let's say you've chosen 2 DVNs, and these DVNs could just be like 2 by 2 multisig, right? So if you just like say if you want to send you a message from Arbitrum to Optimism, and you use Layer 0 with these 2 DVNs, these 2 like off-chain validators would just see your message on Arbitrum and just approve or attest that this happened on Arbitrum on Optimism. Of course, you're fully trusting these 2 validators, but that's like the most basic way of doing this.
Okay, and if I use layer zero, what's like that? What's the trust assumption there? What exactly do I trust when I use layer? Obviously, I need to trust layer zero, but how? Yeah, what's exactly the trust assumption there?
So like of course if yeah, these topics of course like super broad, right? So let me actually first talk about like layer zero and what exactly it is, right? So I call it an arbitrary messaging bridge. So what layer zero enables is that like if you're on a same chain, right? Let's say you want to call Aave contract on Ethereum itself. You have a contract on Ethereum and you want to call a different contract on Ethereum. You can just make a call to that contract because it's on the same chain, right? But across chains, you can't do the same because like these are two different chains with different validators stuff, right? So this is what layer zero enables pretty much. You send a message through layer zero from Arbitrum, and layer zero relays this message to Optimism and executes this message if there's like a call required. So that's what layer zero enables. Just it allows you to send data from one chain to another chain in a very secure manner. But the layer zero architecture is built like an aggregator. It's not a single validator bridge. So for instance, let's consider Axelar. That is a single validator bridge, or single type of validator bridge. Like Axelar is a network of, Axelar is a chain. So whenever you send a message from Arbitrum to Optimism, the chain validators, they validate your message and then they attest to the message. That's how it gets sent to Optimism, right? So in this case, your message, this message passing is secured by the Axelar chain. But whereas layer zero is an aggregator of different these security, I would say like security modules. You can call them security modules, and they call this like DVNs. Each security module is called DVN. So for example, like you can plug Axelar into layer zero to be a validator for your message. So in this case, like you send a message through layer zero, which is an aggregator, it just relays or it uses Axelar to verify this message and send it to a different contract on Optimism in this case. So yeah, like that's like a very, very, I would say, high level explanation of what layer zero is and the architecture. So when I said it's an aggregator, it has different validator methods or security modules, and you can just choose, you as a dApp developer, or you can just choose whichever solution that you want to use for your particular dApp setup.
Okay, so basically, going back to layer zero, it's basically they have like a messaging contract on every chain they support. You send a message from that contract, and some off-chain infrastructure relayer thing picks this message up and transports that to the other chain that you want to call into. Is that basically from a high level how it works?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much how layer zero works. And yeah, but like this off-chain validator can be anyone, and it can be super secure as something like a ZK bridge, or ZK validator, or it can be as simple as just a server just using an RPC to just look at a message and just transmitting that onto the other chain.
Okay, so like the interface of this messaging contract is basically, I don't know, they have like a send function where I put in the chain that I want to call, the contract, and the function and some call data that I want to call there, and it gets relayed. How long does it typically take? Like, how long does I trigger a transaction? Like, I put a message into the layer zero contract on Arbitrum to trigger something on Optimism. How long does it take?
So that usually depends on the source chain. The source chain, if it is something like Polygon, where the finality of the chain is like, I think, very long. It's like a few minutes, I guess. So in that case, like the layer zero validators, they would wait until, for those number of blocks, and then they relay the message. But especially for chains like Base, Arbitrum, it's quite fast, but it's not super fast because, like, like even those blocks can be reverted, even though theoretically, or it has not happened so far. None of the Arbitrum or Optimism blocks have been reverted. But Layer0 still waits for like 40 seconds on average to transmit between L2s. But yeah, like it pretty much depends on the source chain. If the source chain is Ethereum, yeah, it takes like quite long.
Interesting. How do you pay? How is the gas calculated? Like, how do I pay for the destination chain execution?
Yeah, so when you pay on the source chain, they also they also add an extra fee for the relayers that you're going to pay, as well as for the validator as well. So you just be paying everything on the source chain. There's no need for gas on the destination chain for you as a project. Yeah.
Okay. So, but that has to be quite broad, because how do you know how much gas I have to, like, you cannot know how much execution is going to happen on the destination chain, right?
So that's the thing, like you get to set, I mean, you as a developer would be setting the gas limit on the destination chain. Based on the gas limit, Layer0 quotes you this amount. Like, this is the gas amount that you need to send on the source chain. Yeah, that's how it works. Like all of these things were a big problem in the past. Like 3 years back, like it was a lot harder for us to, do all of these things, like estimating gas, having gas on the destination chain and everything. But I think Layer0 abstracts most of these problems away from the developer.
Nice. How's the developer experience of using something like Layer0?
Of course. So I mean, like, in fact, Smoke is also built on Layer0. So I have worked on these contracts myself. It's quite seamless, honestly. Yeah, it's pretty good. In fact, like, I've also done a comparison between Layer0 and Hyperlane, I think a few months ago, when I was deciding which bridge to use. And I went with Hyperlane. Sorry, I went with Layer0 for Smoke. But yeah, the developer experience is like quite seamless. They've got very good documentation. But I would say, like, the response time, it's maybe like it could be faster. But yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
As in, like, the response time when I ask them some questions. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, you mean the response time from their team? Okay.
Yes, support questions.
I see. I see.
But the tech is pretty good. I would say, like, Layer0, like I looked into a lot of different setups when I was deciding back in I think August or July, August, and then like Layer0 was, in my opinion, was the best solution in the market for that.
Interesting. So the tech has really improved over the last couple of years.
Yeah, the tech has improved a lot in the last few years.
Nice. Well, yeah. Let's talk about Smoke, man, which is the thing you're building. Walk me through it. How did you came up with the idea? What's exactly you're trying to achieve? And let's talk about how you're trying to achieve it.
Sure, of course. So I briefly touched upon Smoke and how I got the idea, like, in my intro, but like pretty much, back in March or April, when I was working on the Delphi and Superchain report, I was also thinking about this problem, the cross-chain problem. What is the best solution for this? And like since I've been in the space for the last 3 years, I've thought of different problems, different kinds of bridges, architectures of different bridges, like Across, Stargate, and I just wanted to build something that just worked across all chains and just had, like, very faster, cheaper bridge that just supports all chains. That was actually the goal behind Smoke. But like the insight that stuck to me and that kind of ignited Smoke was the idea that, what if I just lent you Shafu funds on Optimism, and you can just pay back end of the day later. So like this has two aspects to it. One, like the lending part, where I'm lending you some funds on Optimism, where you don't have funds, and you're just paying me an interest rate. This interest rate is super cheap, right? So you as a user would just be like paying this 5% rate on Optimism, and you can just pay back. If you just calculate that for a day, it is next to nothing, right? It's almost like 5% 5 by, if it's like 3% APY on ETH, or like 5%, you can say, it's like 1 bips is what you would be paying, right? And second is the repayment part, where like you would have to repay me on Optimism at a later part of time, end of the day, end of the week, right? So like you can ask me like you would have the question, why am I paying interest rate and also repaying? So am I like am I not paying more than the amount that I would be bridging like right now? But it's not actually the case, because like when we do repayments, we do batch repayments. We just settle transactions across different chains. We batch them and cancel out cows, like just like how CowSwap cancels out swapping in the 20 seconds time window, or like I think 1 minute batch auction time window that they have. We, on the other hand, can cancel out orders for up to a day, right? Which is a very long time, and it would have a lot more cows than CowSwap has, which is for volatile assets. So these are like the two main insights that kind of stuck with me, and like the reason why these are the two main insights that motivated me to build Smoke, and throughout the last 6 months almost.
Interesting. Yeah, let me just make sure I understand this correctly. So I'm a person who I'm on Arbitrum, but I want to do stuff on Optimism. I want to do some DeFi stuff, but I don't have liquidity there. So rather than bridging all my liquidity from Arbitrum to Optimism, I borrow against some collateral I have on Arbitrum and
Yes.
lend on Optimism, and I can use stuff there, and at the end of the day or at a specific time I pay that back plus interest.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So
Okay,
this is
you answered the question already, but again, how is I understand that you're batching things, but how is that cheaper than just bridging?
Yeah, of course. So like in this case, like like what do you do right now if you want to bridge from Arbitrum to Optimism? Where do you go, for instance? Like which bridge do you use?
To be honest with you, I'm not a heavy DeFi user anyway, and I'm like a Ethereum mainnet maxi.
Nice.
So yeah, I haven't used the bridges in the last 2 years, maybe.
That's nice. I mean, it's comfortable to be on mainnet, just using mainnet. But yeah, like since of course I've used a lot of bridges in the past. So I use something like, I would use like a user would use something like Across, Stargate, or they can just go to an aggregator like Bungee or Jumper, right? So that's what a user nowadays does. But let's say like let's say for instance you use Across, right, which is like one of the most popular bridges. Like if you use Across to bridge from Arbitrum to Optimism, you would be paying a bridge fee, right? So in the case of Across, there would be this third-party relayer that fills your order, and then they get paid back on the source chain or on the destination chain. So in this case, like you are just paying some fee to Across to do this, right? But what if like you just borrowed some amount on like Optimism, right? So you just borrowed like 1 ETH on Optimism, and you're just paying a very small fee, a small interest fee, and then after a few hours, right? You let's say like you found 100 users that, or let's say let's not 100 users. Let's just say you found one user, right? So you just found me, who wants a bridge from Optimism to Arbitrum, right? So now both of us have a coincidence of want, right? Right? Like you want a bridge from Arbitrum to Optimism, me the other way around. So instead of using any bridge at all, what if we just exchanged our assets on both of these chains, right? If you just exchange our assets, like then there's no need to bridge, there's no need to lock liquidity, there's no need to hold liquidity. All of these things cost a lot of money, right? Like if you hold liquidity across different chains, of course you need to have some yield for these assets, and if you lock it, of course you're losing out on the opportunity cost of having that on Aave, for instance. So, like in this case, we're not paying any bridge fee. In our example, where you want to bridge one ETH Arbitrum to Optimism, I want to do the other way around. It's like the same cost for us, 1-to-1, but you as a user, like you are paying just interest rate on Optimism, which is like super cheap anyway, right? So that's actually how we can be much cheaper than across Stargate or any of the bridges in the space.
Interesting.
I don't think I did the justice for the smoke architecture, which is fantastic with that explanation, but yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the architecture. Yeah, how do you make it happen?
Yeah, so we have we would have issuers. So we would have lenders on different chains. Like for instance, it can be a decentralized lender based on a TEE, or it can be a centralized lender. So pretty much me as a user, I would just or me as a lender, I would just lend you capital on Optimism at this interest rate, at a market rate, you can say, like 5%, which is first of all too high. Aave is at like 2.5% right now for ETH. So let's say I just lend you at 5%, and you can just pay me back at a later point of time. So how would I know that you will pay me back? I will know because you have locked your collateral on any of the chains. For instance, let's say you have locked your collateral on Ethereum. This is actually the perfect solution for you, like Shafu, because you as a Ethereum mainnet user, you can just lock your funds on Ethereum mainnet, and now you can use your ETH on any of the L2s instantly, like the fastest solution in a much cheaper way as well. So you would have collateral locked on one of the chains, and then me as a lender, I can see that you have collateral locked on Ethereum, right? So so since there's a collateral locked, I can just instantly give you an approval to borrow on Optimism. So how do I know that you're not going to withdraw your collateral without repaying your loan? You as a user, you cannot withdraw your collateral without getting an approval from me as an issuer, right? So without my permission, you can't withdraw. So I will know that you cannot withdraw. So I can just lend you capital instantly on any of the chains out there. So that's why that's how the core architecture works. So of course, you can ask me why. What if I just never give you a permission to withdraw your collateral? In that case, of course, you can prove using layer 0. So that's where layer 0 comes into the picture. You can use layer 0 to prove that you've repaid all of your loans on different chains, and you can prove that on the source chain, and then you can just withdraw your collateral after proving. That is only if I refuse to approve your withdrawal, which I wouldn't do, but in the worst case.
Okay, interesting. Obviously, one big problem when building anything in DeFi is liquidity, right? Which is really hard to attract. Do you have a plan for that? How to attract enough liquidity to make this happen?
Yeah, so we'll be working with different market makers in the space. I don't want to name names, but different market makers that would be lending to users just to earn interest on their ETH, right? So right now, they can just deposit some asset like WSD ETH or Bitcoin on Aave. They can just borrow at 2%, and they can lend to smoke users at 5 to 10%, right? That's actually one reason why they would want to do it, and it's like it should be as simple as that. But of course, like I'm not saying it's super simple, but so we have partnerships with these liquid market makers to be the lenders.
How's the interest rate like? Where's this 5%, 10%? How's this? And is this like a fixed thing when I borrow, or is it dynamic, or does it change?
So
How's the
there are
interest rate
two ways.
calculated?
Yeah, so there are two kinds of issuers on Smoke. The first kind, where I said like market makers would be lending on Smoke, they would simply be they can just choose to use a fixed interest rate, because it's just much simpler, right? Um, Whereas like we also are working on different decentralized lenders. So these decentralized lenders are like pretty much on-chain pools, right? That users deposit funds into, right? So if you as a user, if you just use decentralized pools, the interest rate would be determined by the market rate at this time. So if there's like, just like on Aave, it just works similar to Aave. If there's high demand, interest rates go up, and as the interest rates go up, that's an incentive for someone else to deposit into Smoke pools to earn that juicy yield.
Okay, I see. Interesting, man. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Um, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
You were
it's
saying, yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead.
it's a new way of solving this problem, right? So all of us, we like the main solution in the market is just lock your token, send a message, prove that you have locked your tokens, and then you unlock tokens. Or in the intent solver model, you get someone to fill your order, and the filler proves on the source chain, right? But in our case, we use cross-chain messaging only in the worst case scenario, when the issuer is refusing to pay back your loan, right? Or just refusing to approve your withdrawal of collateral. So that's why it's kind of like a new way of solving this problem. And I think this is like a bold claim, but Smoke is actually like faster. One, second, it's cheaper. Third, it's more extensible. It can support new chains much faster than normal bridges. And four, it is super secure. Like it is much more secure than any of the models out there right now. I would say maybe Across is super secure as well. You can compare that to Across, but I think it is super secure compared to other bridges in the space.
Nice. And you were saying you were gonna launch on testnet soon, right?
I don't know. So it's live on testnets.
It's live on testnet.
Right now, yeah. It's live on like 10 chains on testnets. It's like if you want to test it out, you can go to app.smoke.money and test it out. But yeah, mainnet is something we are working towards. Mainnet. There's like a internal version that's live on mainnet, but yeah, not public yet. Still needs a lot of polishing and liquidity and everything.
Okay, so I'm at app.smoke.money right now. Okay, this is interesting. Your NFT is your credit card account. So basically you're representing your position as an NFT.
Yes.
Which I'm personally a big fan of. I really like that. But why the mint price?
So,
or is this is not gas, right? This is actually the price of this NFT.
Yeah, so I mean, like you'll just get that back as credit. You just created. I mean, when you mint a Smoke NFT, you just created an account. You just create an account, and this account would have native credit attached to it. That credit would be the amount that you paid as NFTs. So this, just because just to make the onboarding experience much easier, you just minted an NFT on Base. Now you can use that credit on any of the chains out there. That's something like that we're internally debating if we need to have a mint price attached to it or not. But yeah, that's what I thought of 3 months ago.
I wouldn't do it, man. I wouldn't do it. Speaking out of experience.
Yeah.
like on Dyad, we have this NFT system as well. You need this NFT in order to mint Dyad,
Hmm.
and actually the price of an NFT grows linearly with the number of NFTs minted.
Okay.
And from a user experience point of view, it just even when people don't care about the money, it just makes it harder for them to do it. You know, from a
Yeah.
user experience point of view.
No, I mean, I totally understand. I'm with you as well. Yeah, that's something we're debating internally for sure. And like, it's not actually like an NFT that you can trade because there's no reason for you to trade this NFT, right? So I just chose NFTs because it's easier to represent them as an account. Like now you have your smoke card, like just because we also like I also have this analogy of like this is your cross-chain credit card. Like you can just connect your wallet and just spend from this card on any dApp out there, right? So just for easier presentation, and also like if you wanna change your main account or main account holder, you just send this NFT to a different account or different wallet. Now then that wallet becomes the owner of this account. So yeah, like it is just a representation. Um, like I think I can just remove the NFT like name altogether and just have the underlying infrastructure for accounts. But yeah, like very good for feedback. I'm probably gonna just remove the minting fee.
Exactly, man. Like I'm personally a huge fan of NFTs as an abstraction, but as you've said, yeah, abstracted away from the user, I think
Yeah,
would be better.
yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, like yeah, it has certain benefits attached to it. But yeah,
No, it has huge benefits. Actually, like you said even for if you want to sell your position, you have like a credit card, you want
exactly.
to sell it somehow, makes it instantly tradable.
Yes.
Maybe at some point it actually makes sense to buy or sell these. Who knows? I could actually think about some interesting financial products where you could bundle a bunch of small credit cards, and have them trade or something. You can always do that if you represent your thing as an NFT.
No, absolutely. So like one of the main reasons why we made it an NFT is because let's say you as a user you have funds on Ethereum mainnet, deposited some ETH on mainnet, and you've used like let's say 20 L2s, right? I'm not sure. Yeah, you've used 20 L2s and you've spent your ETH on all of these L2s. Like now, like you would have to repay your loan on all of these 20 L2s. Of course, we fully automated from you as an end user, but let's say you just don't want to repay your loan, you just want to withdraw your collateral, and just the difference between that. So now you can just sell your NFT to anyone else who's willing to just repay all of your loan and then withdraw your collateral. So they would just give you a quote, like the difference between the debt versus the collateral. They just give you that amount, and you can just like sell your position and just fully get out of it. So that's one of the main
Mm,
reasons, just to remove the complexity for a user to exit a position, like you said. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, tell me about the future of this. So you're live on testnet now. How long until mainnet launch audits and all the good stuff?
Yeah. So mainnet is gonna be like Q1 next year. Yeah, in the next few months. So like we wanna we, like it's gonna have some beta or alpha mainnet in the coming weeks for sure. Yeah, but it's not gonna be super, like it won't have a lot of liquidity, right? So we're gonna have like a full mainnet probably like a few months from now, but alpha mainnet with like very small liquidity just to see how fast and cheap it is. Yeah, it's gonna be a few weeks from now. Unaudited, unaudited the alpha mainnet. So yeah, if you're decent enough to just try it out, um, yeah, it'll be there.
Nice. Awesome, man. Sounds great. Listen, this was very I learned a ton of stuff. I actually think I got a good grasp of, cross-chain stuff now. It's interesting, like the last thing I did on cross-chain stuff was like 3 years ago. We built this multi-token bridge contract for Optimism, like 3 years ago. This is like the last thing I did
Interesting.
cross-chain related. And yeah, for Dyad, we're only on Ethereum mainnet. So we didn't have that issue. But yeah, what would be interesting as well would be to talk about something like Superform, or actually because I thought about this a little bit. If you're building something like a yield aggregator,
Yeah.
we both talked to someone who's potentially building that. How would you do that, and how would you make sure that you can move funds quickly between chains? How would you represent your position? So what I'm imagining is me as a user. Let's say I'm only interacting with Base, for example, but in the background you're taking my USDC and you're depositing it on, let's actually just use Aave, because surprisingly the rates on Aave differ highly from chain to chain, which I didn't know before. So actually, let's look at it right now. So I'm on Base right now. On Base, USDC is for lending 23%. Let's look at Arbitrum. It's 11%. So it's a huge difference. So let's say we're building this yield aggregator that move funds between chains and deposits that on different Aave instances. How would we build this?
No, of course. So, yeah, like you've seen, there's a huge difference between the interest rates on different chains, like especially on Aave. Like I keep seeing, sometimes USDC is like 20%, whereas like on Arbitrum, it would be just like 10% or 9%, for instance, right? So, this has several factors attached to it, right? First of all, if you as a user, if you are chasing yield and you just like clicking buttons yourself as a yield chaser, right? Like addition. So yeah, like you would just have to withdraw your Aave USDC, then bridge that USDC to a different chain, and then deposit into Aave on that chain, right? Which is of course like inefficient. First of all, because like you can't always be looking at the yield across different chains. And also, like you as a user, you would not do the calculation. You just see, okay, Arbitrum has 10% right now, whereas like Optimism has 20%, and you just just remove your $1,000 from Arbitrum to Optimism and bridge it to Optimism, and then deposit it into Aave, right? But like, is it actually worth it? Is something that you need to consider. Like, it's something that like you as a human might not be great at doing, right? Because you can't do the calculation so fast and stuff. But yeah, but like usually, right, like if there's actually a spike in interest rate on a chain, it only lasts for a few minutes, or some maybe like a few hours, like worst case, right? Why? Because like if it's 20% on Optimism, like there would be a lot of liquidity that will move from mainnet or from all of the different chains to Optimism just to get that yield, right? So the yield will get diluted in a few minutes because if there's a spike. So you as an end user, you need to consider, okay, so is the bridging costs, are these costs like worth it for me to bridge from this chain to that chain and then deposit into Aave, right? So the yield that you would be earning, like from 20% for a few hours, should be higher than the bridge costs. That's like the criteria. So I wouldn't actually recommend end users to do this rebalancing themselves. So that's why like you've like the yield aggregator that we know, and also Superform. Although they don't actually, Superform doesn't do like auto rebalancing yet, but like a cross-chain yield aggregator that does auto rebalancing would need to would have like a bird's eye view of all of the yield on different chains and the bridging costs of between chains, and then they can calculate, okay, so how long do they estimate this yield to stay high, and then they will need to consider, okay, is it actually worth it to do this bridging transaction or not, or just like keep the funds on this chain for a long time, without doing rebalancing.
Okay, it's obviously a trade-off. You need to see how much you're spending actually on bridging, how much the actual delta between interest rates actually lasts on a particular chain.
Yeah.
You cannot predict the future, so you have a risk there that once you bridge, then the yield is gone already. So a lot of parameters that you have to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like if you're building an automated yield aggregator, you would need to have an underlying messaging layer like layer 0 or Hyperlane to send or convey this message to a different chain, saying that these funds belong to this particular user, or things like that. So it's not super simple. There are, first of all, a lot of costs involved, and like it requires like actual calculations and like finding out if it's actually worth it, because obviously just earning 20% for a few minutes is nothing. Like it is very it might not even cover the gas cost of withdrawing your funds, right? So like this was something like on-chain yield aggregators like Yearn like systems do. Like when they are rebalancing from Aave to Compound on Ethereum mainnet, they're considering the gas costs, right? If it's actually worth it right now to bridge to move your funds. So, but of course, like cross-chain, the gas costs matter a lot as well. But there's also the bridge costs involved. And unlike on-chain rebalancing, where like Aave to Compound, you're only paying a fixed cost. So if you're moving $1 million, it's very little, right? But cross-chain, oftentimes you're actually paying a percentage of the amount that you're moving. So if you're paying like 10 bips, for instance, like 10 bips is like a very high amount. I mean, very high fee for bridging. So that's something, if you're earning like 10% yield, that is almost like, let's say for instance, for simplicity, you're earning like ETH 3.65% yield, and 10% is almost like 10 days worth of yield that you're wasting pretty much by just bridging.
Interesting. Listen, Sam, this was super interesting, man. Good luck with Smoke. For anyone that's interested, I'm gonna leave the link to the docs, to the app on testnet, and your Twitter if someone wants to reach out, in the description down below. Sam, thanks for taking the time, and good luck with the mainnet launch.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It was, of course, nice to nerd out about cross-chain, like always. And yeah, I'm also like excited to see where you end up as well, like in your journey. I'm sure you probably want to build something on your own or join somewhere. Or yeah, by the way, I also love your. I think you're doing a series of smart contract and basic smart contracts for like lending and swapping, etc. So it's pretty nice. But yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that. And thanks, guys, for tuning in. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.